guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope your day is good. Today we are going to continue working on the steering wheel. I've done a little bit of work on it since the last video. One thing I do want to say is thank you very much for the comments and the thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. To the individual that left the comment stating that they were looking forward to the little chunk of plastic to be put in that gaping hole that I had in the wheel. I apologize. We got to get, sorry about that. We need to get the little mule. Where are we? There we go. We want to get that little mule in the shot. I apologize. I did go ahead and just fill that hole in. Essentially, I just had an old wheel horse steering wheel. I think it was like off a 1056 or maybe even, yeah, maybe a 1056 or a 1057 or 1257, whatever. It was one of the bigger mid-60s tractors. The wheel was destroyed. I just took a chunk of plastic, just cut it with a hacksaw, broke it off, cut it to shape, stuck it in the hole. So let me show you how that came out and the work that's been done so far. So with the wheel here up on the workbench, you can see that I've started to shape one of the spokes, and we'll get to that in 1 second. Now, as for the big gaping hole, here's what we have thus far. Basically, I just cut a piece of plastic that fits. I buttered up the inside, I buttered up the outside, shoved the piece in there, and then coated it with epoxy. Now, it is a little low. It's not perfect. I will get to how this is going to get shaped out in 1 second, but I did want to show you what I've done thus far. And essentially what I've done is I've taken a rough file, fairly rough file, with a rounded side and just shaped it. Now, I'm not looking to get this perfect. I'm just looking to level it out. And, you know, there's a little divot right here, there's a little divot right there. On the back side, I think there's a divot somewhere. Oh, that's not the one we're looking for. Yeah, actually, you can see the little divot right there. There's a couple little divots, and that's fine. And there's a little one right here. That's fine. I'm not looking to make this perfectly smooth at this point. I just want to get all of the work area flat or level. So when you run your finger along it, I can feel this, and you know, there's a little bit of a low spot, but in general, it is fairly smooth. And as you can tell, I did reshape the back part of this already. We are missing a little piece over there, and we'll take care of that later. But essentially, I want to get a rough shape. And I'm using the actual top of the hub to create the flat spot that's on the top of the wheel. And obviously, I got to go around the rest of that. But essentially, all I'm doing is I'm just taking the file. Oops, got a magnet, sorry. Taking this file and just gently going across it to level that out, trying not to obviously ride up onto the spoke. We don't need to fix damage that I'm creating. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to file it. And then when I say I file it, like, you know, like this here, I use the flat of the file, and I'm just, you know, I'm only doing this with one hand, so just bear with me. But, you know, that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm just kind of going across it to get it nice and smooth or nice and level. And then from there, I'll make a decision as to where epoxy may have to be added, or if it's just a minute, that'll end up being where a little bit of body filler will go in. So let me go ahead and continue sanding this down a little bit, or filing this down. I'll hit it with a little bit of 220 just to check off on a few things to make sure it's smooth. And then we'll tackle that bigger piece in the back. Now that I've been filing for about 20 or 30 minutes, I've gotten the top side kinda where I want, but I wanted to show you an issue that's cropping up that I didn't necessarily foresee specifically, but kind of must have somehow thought about it, and that is this. I'm going to try to do this with one hand, so bear with me. If we take a look at the center of the wheel, here, let me put this thing up over here so I can point to what I'm talking about. So when we look at the center of the wheel, we have an original kind of arc here, original kind of arc here, original kind of arc here, and a kind of original arc right here. But if we look here, we got this possibly could be too low, And this arc here is possibly too high. We got like this point and that point is theoretically a different. These are pretty close, or close enough. After a little bit more filing and some sanding, you'll never really notice that these four angles are just a minute different. But this here and here, that is definitely an issue that's going to need to be addressed. So I just wanted to bring up that to you, that, you know, essentially I'm going to have to figure out, well, this here I can hog this down to match these. I'm not worried about this one so much. I just got to be careful. This one here, I'm going to need to continue to file it so I can get a nice smooth and level base, and then from there figure out how I'm going to fill this area in order to get it as close as possible to these, because I can fudge these a little bit with some body filler or some thick primer, and those will I'm pretty sure I can get those to look absolutely mint. I'm pretty sure I can get this one to look mint. This one here concerns me, but I just wanted to bring that up, that, you know, I am seeing some issues that I'm going to have to address, and I'm going to keep filing, and then we'll see what happens. With the preliminary filing and sanding it to 120, it doesn't look too bad. It's close. I'd say it's probably about 80%, maybe 75 to 80%. One thing I did notice right here at the 12 o'clock position, you can see a small line right there, and that's a crack. The plastic is so brittle, it must have happened when I was, you know, clamping it in place. So to fix that, I'm going to take a hacksaw and groove out that crack, and then I'm going to fill it with epoxy. Also, the piece back here is really caved in. It's real low right in that area. So I'm going to sand that area up and eventually mix up some epoxy and fill that in. But overall, it looks pretty good. Before I do any of that, I am going to just hit it with a little bit of primer, which is really going to show all of the imperfections, you know, right to your eye. And essentially I'm looking for shaping, like, you know, how's this, see this line right here, how's that line look here, and then how's it follow here, because that really has to get kind of dialed in. Also the thickness of the spokes, they're pretty close, but I think one of them, I think it's this one's a little thin, so we'll have to build something up there or subtract a little bit off the thickest one so they look a little bit closer to each other. But in general, I'm happy with this preliminary glue of the pieces. So let me go ahead and shoot a little primer right here on the center, so that way I can take a look and see what kind of mess I'm dealing with. With the center primed, now we can really see a lot of the fine tuning work that's going to be needed. Obviously there's divots, you know, the center is close but not close enough, obviously, so we'll need to fix that. I know that this here needs to be done, but I'm not worried about that. When we flip it over, we can see that it's a mess. There's a lot of divots, a lot of areas that need to be addressed. Let's see what's over here. You know, so like this crack needs to be fixed. You know, overall for a first gluing and filing, I think that looks pretty good. Now I can get in there, scuff this lightly once it dries, and go ahead and start filling all those little areas in. I'm going to do all of this with epoxy. I'm not going to go to the body filler quite yet. I want that to get a little bit smoother. Oh, and where's that crack? The crack that I was talking about, it's right there. You can kind of see it. So I'm going to go ahead and hog that crack out a little bit, so that way we can, when I do the epoxy, and I can just do it pretty much all at once. All right, so let me let this dry, scuff it up, fill in all the little spots, and then we'll go from there. With the center re-epoxied, I'm just going to let this cure. It's probably about as much as I'm going to be able to do today, because the next filing, as you can see, I try to get it. It's a mess, I know, but I got it as close as I could, roughly. Now I think I have enough material here to where I can just do the very rough straightening. And then from there, just do a little bit of body work, some primer, and then we can shoot it black. I know that I said that kind of quick. It's going to be longer than that because I still have to do the back side. But in general, I think the front is going to come along quite nicely. So let's have this cure, and when I come back, it should be all rough sanded. Where the first one was to level everything out, this one is to shape a little bit. We'll do the back, shape the back a little bit, and then we'll start doing some body work. So with the first layer of epoxy just kind of laid on and sanded down. I'm getting ready to start doing some body work, but unfortunately I will have to put a little bit more epoxy in a few spots. This is, you can see this is, I hogged it out too much, plus it wasn't really rounded off enough. I got the rest of them pretty darn close. There's, you know, a nice little point coming towards the spokes themselves. The spokes feel real good, and I got to do the backside. But in general, I'm real happy with the initial sand out of this. So let's mix up some more epoxy, and I'll do some more touch up. And before you know it, we'll be doing some body work. I brought the wheel back out in the sunlight so we can take a look at exactly what we have going on here. And as you can see, it's looking pretty good. There's a lot of muraling, and that's just the different, you know, the different applications of epoxy, and that's what this is. I re-epoxied the entire thing here to cover up pretty much all the cracks, and I can make it as smooth as I possibly can. I actually fixed a divot up here, and then there was some pretty good crack right in here, right at the, I guess, the crotch of the spoke. Also, there's the big open space. As you can see, it's not mint, but it's there. What we're going to do is I'm going to now go get some spot putty and spot putty this entire area, front and back, and then block it out to get it as smooth and straight as possible. As you can tell, these lines, like this line here and this line here, they're not perfectly straight or perfectly symmetrical. So what we're going to need to do with the spot putty is really dial that in, and it should be just fine. Let's see later, where else? Yeah, so here's the big chunk that was missing. This is the area right here. I'm going to do a little more sanding to straighten out that little lower, this lower line right here, this rounded line. But other than that, it's ready to go. Spot putty it up, block it all out, and then prime and paint. One thing the owner had asked me not to do was to dial it in perfectly, not like dial this in perfectly, but don't fix all the imperfections in the wheel, as it is going on a tractor that is patinaed. So I didn't want it super mint, so that's the way we're going to go. I'm going to try to age it maybe, I don't know, but basically I'm not going to make it super perfect. The hub area will get super perfect in the sense of its lines, but in general the wheel will have a couple imperfections in it even after I re-squirt the paint on it. So I gotta go to the store and get some spot putty. With the spot putty cured, I'm starting to sand it off, and basically what I'm trying to do is sand the flat part. So I'm using the hub as the leveling agent to make the center. And as you can see, there's like these little wings being produced. The original wheel had a fairly prominent, like almost diamond pattern, or diamond triangular pattern. It's going to be kind of tough to recreate that because of all the damage that had happened in the wheel itself, but I'm trying to just get a basic layout. You can see how this one kind of whoops in a little bit. I'm going to have to probably fill that in a little bit more with some spot putty, but I want to get the general layout of this outer edge. I'll do that by sanding, using the sanding block and sanding flat in this direction, and then I'll just start to work around this edge and work around the edge, and I'll use the actual body filler, or the spot putty I should say, as kind of the guide coat to shape it so I can get it as close as I possibly can. And in like areas like this where there's really kind of a need for some additional material, I'll just add that in and then shape it. I'm going to work on this a little bit. It's going to take me a little bit of time to do it, but I'm going to work it, shape it, and then I'll get back and show you some hopefully positive results. After some sanding, I decided to just shoot it with a quick little spray of primer just so I can see how it looks. And in general, it's okay. There is definitely work that's going to be needed to be done. We're going to have to add in some filler here and there to get the sides nice and straight. As you know, this whole center of the wheel was just missing. Now, on my senior and on other seniors, I've seen these wheels with this design in the center. Now, the individual that owns this wheel had indicated to me that he doesn't believe this wheel had this triangular like design in the center.
So I've asked him to send me some pics of his other two seniors and what the wheels look like, and I'll make a determination whether or not I'm going to have to recreate this. Now, I've started the process. Essentially, I took a piece of paper, put it on top of this, and just used my finger and nail to make like the fold marks of the design. I'll cut that out with a piece of cut that out with some scissors, and obviously I'll use the center hole to center it on this. So let me go ahead, let me get that cut out. Let me see how that lays on the wheel, and we may call that this video, but let's cut this out. I was just advised that his steering wheels do have this pattern in the center. So I'm going to have to try to recreate that. I don't think I'm ready to recreate it because I don't have this edge here on these rounded edges quite ready. They're a little bit off. I'm thinking I may actually have to sand most of this putty off, the spot putty off, and go to actual body filler. So that way I have a more stable substrate to create this top piece on. And the other thing too is, if you notice, this triangular is level with the hub. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, make it level with the hub, to be honest with you. This may be just a little bit raised from the hub. It'll look maybe just a touch off, but based on what I had to work with, if that's the only thing that kind of gives it away that it's been monkeyed with, I think that's it's not that bad. But I'm going to go ahead and call this a video for today. I got to do some conceptual thinking before I move on to the next step of how I'm going to fix this, or how I'm going to go about fixing it. So before I can tell you how I'm going to fix it, I need to think about it. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you would, please make a comment below, good, bad, and different. I usually leave all comments up as long as you're not trying to sell something and you're not derogatory. So by all means, I really appreciate your support. And as always, have a great day.